Hey guys, George Mesa, Third Eye Edify podcast. And I'm here today with a short episode that was thankfully inspired by a recent chat with Moonfeather, who is a regular on my Telegram chat, who will be a guest very soon. Hint, hint. But not before having my wife on for episode 100, which is my next episode, by the way. This short is number 30. And my next episode will be number 70. And 100 episodes. Wow. I almost didn't realize it until very recently. So that's pretty amazing. Thank you to everyone who has been here for the ride or who is new. Thank you to all my supporters as well on Patreon and on Rockfin. So on my Telegram, and if you're not there, by the way, please do join. There's a link in the show notes. Join the Telegram chat. We have great conversations. There's a lot of old guests there and a lot of other people who, in my opinion, are some of the smartest people I've ever talked to. So it's an incredible place to edify yourself or just have a nice conversation with some great people. Anyway, we were discussing speaking in tongues or the idea of, nonsense, gibberish, if you want to call it that. And it sparked me to think about a recent article I had seen where people were testing out if the AI like ChatGPT and the other ones, which I have spoken about extensively on this show, and also mentioned it certainly in my book, Inside the Little TV with the Nuclear Explosion, there's the human hand and the robot hand touching the cell phone. That image I actually used in a thumbnail for episode 11 called Transformers. I certainly suggest watching that. So the idea was that they're testing these AI models to see how they can handle gibberish, nonsense. If you give them non-language and really actually just gibberish, which I will not attempt to imitate now, even if I can do it very well, it mistakes it for significant language, or mistakes nonsense as meaningful, I should say, is how that was worded in this article. So what did that make me think of now? Because gibberish has also been called babbling, if you just babble on. Now, babbling can be a term where you're just talking endlessly without letting anyone else get in to the conversation and just kind of going off on a tangent without stopping. You can babble on. But babbling can also be a form of gibberish or speaking in tongues, whether it's a religious context or not. So this got me thinking about the Tower of Babel, where everyone was placed at a ground zero. Everyone was placed on a commonality and left with nothing but to babble, and then placed all around the world so different languages could develop as they attempted to build a tower that reached the sky. Or who knows what happens if you go too far up. Perhaps you hit something. Hint, hint. And not an episode to discuss that, but more of an episode to discuss the power that this may reveal. And I'm not here to go nuts right now because this is a short episode. And if anyone that's familiar with my program knows that I do try to pack as much as I can into these shorts. Or maybe I treat them as a short because it's a very sensitive subject that might just get me essentially kicked off of YouTube. And I'm not necessarily looking for that, even though YouTube constantly just losing subscribers, gaining them back. People telling me they had to subscribe 3 times because they keep getting kicked off as a sub from my channel. My views fluctuate so heavily. I'm not losing. It's not like YouTube does anything for me except for reaching an audience that I wouldn't normally have. But there's some very odd, strange things with the way that YouTube treats me as a channel. Now, I also have my Bass University channel where I speak about bass guitar, my teaching, my understanding of it, and the things I've picked up along the, nearly 30 years I've been teaching bass guitar. And YouTube treats that channel very well. It gives me monthly reviews. It updates me on my subscriber base and other things like that. I don't get any. I've never actually received any of that treatment with Third Eye Edify. Strange how YouTube chooses to completely ignore this channel, and then I have a bass guitar channel which doesn't push any buttons, or it doesn't push any wrong buttons, and it loves me. It loves my Bass University channel, which already has almost as many subs as this and is growing, and this channel's kind of dead on here as far as YouTube goes. Which is why I would love it if you found me on Patreon or Rockfin, at places that, at least are considering giving me something in return, if it's not directly from a patron. So anyway, this got me thinking, because I want to state clearly now something I've already stated several times, that AI as an idea is certainly nothing new at all. And it's becoming this blanket term of like, oh, it's AI. Oh, let AI do this for you. These mechanisms have been in place for many, I'm just going to say decades. Forget years, many decades. They're labeling it as something new. They're giving you the opportunity to be an artist by putting a few words inside of a search bar or, a search box. These concepts are not new. The idea of artificial intelligence combing the internet for information to compile and give you a result. This is not anything new. The way that you're able to use it now, that what seems like a more powerful version of it, where it's going to do your homework assignment, or it's going to create your bullet point presentation that you didn't make for work tomorrow. Sure, maybe there's slightly different elements at play here, but always remember, the technology we get is definitely not the technology that they have. And if it's free, and a lot of it just kind of requires a setup, and some of them do cost money, regardless, you are a product. You are helping playtest this stuff for them. So don't bother. So now to the main idea and the reason the thumbnail looks the way it does. The robot is confused. The Tower of Babel becoming the sound wave coming out of the human's mouth. And by the way, Babel, the Hebrew word, Balil, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Balel perhaps, or Balel, Baal-el, it means to confuse, to jumble. Babel is not mentioned in the Bible, which sounds like the same word basically. Babel is not mentioned. It's called the city, the tower in the city, the tower. Another tarot card. A tarot life everywhere, all over that thing, isn't it? Or just the city. What city? Babylon is the city. This is the name. It's not mentioned in the Bible. It's not named Babel in the Bible. Baal-el, which already does not sound very good. Baal and El. I'm not doing a long episode, otherwise I'd break those down for you. I have in the past. Jumble or confuse. Now, are these cookie crumbs to give us a chance here? A fighting chance against what's coming? In a Terminator type level, where Skynet pretty much is unstoppable, and if they're out there, you're done for? The robots, I'm saying. If the computer program is getting very good at understanding all these different languages that we speak, and if we look back at this story of the Tower of Babel, when we are essentially all brought back to a ground zero where everyone's just babbling incoherently, unable to speak a language to each other. No one can speak to each other with anything but this base babbling. And if Babel, the word coming from Baal-el, means confuse or jumble around, the babbling did confuse. The babbling brook. Bach, the composer, who I will definitely have an episode on in 2025, his name means brook. Babel. Could this be one of the many ways that we can actually fight back and keep our digital sovereignty? If we babble and find a way to communicate with each other through it, because it works. We can use our body language to speak to someone without a common language. We don't even have to use any language. We can babble. You can ooga booga your way to freedom. Because the robot it's the AI, they won't recognize what you're saying. Alter your voice, and you're one step ahead of the game even further. Is babbling a way to keep our digital freedom? Total coincidence, by the way, that a recent episode I did that was inspired by and had something to do with the video game series Doom. That is the first time, because I did not grow up religious. I was very much what I assumed was an atheist, but I believed all the lies as much as I was already very much a conspiracy theorist, if that's how you want to label me. Of course, I don't think that's a very generally reasonable thing to label anybody. If you want to call me that, that's what I was. Ever since the first Gulf War. And before that, and I was pretty damn young at the time. I certainly knew I didn't like war, and I could tell that something was fishy. Because I watched carefully as George Bush Sr. spoke during those times, and it just didn't sit right with me at the time. So, what I did still believe, though, were dinosaurs, outer space, medicine is good, antibiotics. Antibiotics? You sure that's good for me? Vaccines, all that stuff. That was still on, I still didn't get past that yet. I didn't have a reason to, I guess. So it was easy to be an atheist because we're just dumb-ass evolved monkeys on a floating, orbiting, spinning, flying space rock. So it was very easy for me to believe that we were atheists. What's the point? Who cares? Who cares about anything? That is the point of you believing in these things, by the way. And I'm not telling you I have the answer, but I know what I believe is not. And when you believe in those things, these very hard to believe things, then you end up feeling a certain way about your entire existence. And it's okay to just slave away and pay taxes. It's okay now. So anyway, keep this in mind. Take this information. Please start a conversation with the Third Eye Edify Telegram group or on the comments of any of the places that you're checking out this video. Or if you're listening on a podcast. Just imagine if this could easily be one way to defend yourself against being surveilled, scanned. Maybe babbling is one thing they can't get us on. They can't get the information. We would have to see if we turn it into a whole language for ourselves, that can easily be decoded, that can be grabbed. Actual, real babbling, from the heart gibberish, actual speaking in tongues. Maybe they don't understand it, maybe they can't. And this is one of the many things robots they don't have the soul. They do not have a soul. Much like the triad in music needs a root, a third, and a fifth. They're missing that crucial third. The root and the fifth does not tell you if it's major or minor chord. Male, female. Doesn't tell you. So maybe there's a lot of things missing from the way that they compute and analyze language, where the gibberish, the babbling does what it's potentially originally supposed to do. And I guess I didn't finish my thought about Doom. That, because I was an atheist, I didn't know much about what the Bible was saying. I really didn't. I mean, I knew what everyone else knew. But Doom, one of the very first boss levels is called Tower of Babel. And you face a very strong enemy for the first time in, that game. I didn't know what it was. I just thought it sounded cool. I found out it was a reference to the Bible, even though, again, the Bible doesn't mention it, so that's interesting. But, a video game cued me onto it. And that is the result of growing up in the time period that I did, and that I was an atheist. I'm certainly not anymore. I'm not telling you that I sit by the side of my bed and pray every night, or go to church for that matter. But I certainly was under the impression that there was no chance there was anything like a God. How could there be? We're just blips in the middle of nothing. My mind has changed in a very large way about all of that. So I hope that this sparked a few ideas for you, and perhaps this can give you some more to talk about, and maybe it'll help me spark into a new episode, a full episode about these ideas. But please do like, subscribe, share with anyone who you know doesn't know this show and you think they might enjoy what I do or learn or gain from this particular episode. And thank you again to all my patrons on Patreon and anyone that's subscribed on Rockfin. It's a big deal, helps me keep going. And if you do celebrate the holiday that recently passed in any form, whether it's solstice, Christmas, whatever, I hope that you had a great one. I've got one more coming before the year's over. And it'll be with my wife. I can't wait for that. It's going to be a multi-episode series about rituals. Hopefully push off some of the stigma about that. Please do see my previous episode with her, where we discussed birth and the many things that come with that. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.